Hello, I'm back with the earbuds microphone. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in 2024. Love. I read 18 books this year, and that's like not horrible, but kind of bad compared to like in 2020 I read like 60 books. But also I was like at home doing nothing, so it's relative. But I'm gonna go through all 18 of the books I read this year and give you my rating and then like talk about if I recommend it or not and kind of like what it's about, you know. Also, I use Storygraph to mark my stuff because it's just better. So, get off of Goodreads and use Storygraph. I love it. Okay. Anyway, first book I read this year. One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. I read this for AP Euro. I gave it 2.5 out of 5. It was not an enjoyable read, and like when you're forced to read something, it kind of makes it less good. But it had, like, it was there. It had a solid thing going on. It was just basically the entire book. It's not a long book. It's probably like, I feel like it's like between 150 and 200 pages, maybe. At 182, it's on there. So I don't know what I just did. Okay. But it was published in 1962. Okay, that's not as early as I thought it was gonna be. But it's basically 182 pages of like what the title says: One Day in the Life of this guy living in a Russian gulag, way up in the snow. So it's just about like, you know, that being quite difficult. So if you're into like, I don't want to call it slice of life, not slice of life, but like, you know, simple story, just talking about this guy, then I would recommend this book. But yeah, I probably wouldn't read it again if it were up to me. Next we have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have no clue when I read this, because I thought I read it over the summer, but maybe I didn't. Well, I can see literally when I read it. March 29th is when I finished it, so I guess not over the summer, but this book is good. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Taylor Jenkins Reid is a great author. I've read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I've read Daisy Jones and the Six, both fire books. I feel like I've read another one now. Let's take a look. I love her writing. Maybe I haven't. Okay, so I've only read those 3. Perfect. But she writes these books about fake celebrities, kind of. So it's all like that Hollywood world, and they all take place in the 70s. And it's super tea. Like, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo was the first one, I think, and then Daisy Jones and the Six is like in the same time period, and then Malibu Rising is also, oh, obviously they're all in the same time period, I just said that, but they all have like connections every once in a while. Like, one of the books will mention like, oh, and a Daisy Jones and the Six song was playing on the radio, like something like that they're all connected. I don't know if you're interested in like celebrity drama, that's the book for you. But Malibu Rising specifically is about 4 kids of like a famous musician, and like how he like left their family, I'm pretty sure, and then their mom died of alcoholism. And then like they're throwing this party. It's like the whole day of this party, and it's just like all the drama going on in their lives, and they're all surfers and stuff. So yeah. Then next I read Looking for Alaska by John Green. I've read The Fault in Our Stars. I've read Will Grayson. I've read Paper Towns, which is one of my favorite books. read Looking for Alaska. I'm pretty sure that's all that I've read from him. But John Green is sort of like, his writing is so like such a period piece, truly, because like it's so early 2000s, and I personally like kind of live for it. Like, I enjoy reading them, but like Looking for Alaska, I gave it a 3 out of 5, so like not astounding, but it's kind of fun to read. But Looking for Alaska is about basically this boy goes to boarding school, kind of, and it's just like, it's just a wild place. He meets all these people. He really like gets into the whole boarding school life, and he meets this girl named Alaska, who's like the pinnacle, like manic pixie dream girl, like entirely. And she's like, she reads books and she's so cool and she does all this stuff. And then each chapter is like called like 130 days before, 80 days before, 12 days before, and like throughout the book until like the middle of the book, when it says like the day or like 0 days before or something, and then she kills herself. Trigger warning. I guess it's not much of a warning if I say it after, but yeah, that happens, and then the rest of the book is, it's 234 pages, so it's like not that long of a book, but like the last 100 pages or so, we're talking about like how the boys like are coping with this, and them trying to figure out whether it was intentional or like if it was an accident because you crashed your car. That's how it happens. So it's like trying to figure that out. It's very coming of age. Yeah, and so I enjoyed it. I mean, it's quite a short book. Like, not much of it is boring. It's just not very like tasteful, I guess. I guess that's how I would put it. But sometimes you gotta live for that. Next, I read Ace of Spades, which I gave 4.25 out of 5. I kinda ate this book up. Like, the beginning of it, I was sort of like, okay. But it's basically, okay, like, let me even try to summarize. I don't entirely remember. But it's basically about, it goes between the two POVs of this girl and this boy in this like prep school, and they're both black students in like literally the only two black students in this entirely white school. And at first that's not really like mentioned, I guess. Like, it's not really drawn attention to the fact that that's like their situation. But then the girl is trying to be like the it girl, like she wants to be valedictorian, she wants to like have the boyfriend, like the most popular boy in school, and like be all this stuff, and just like be the it girl. And then she's gonna go to an Ivy League, and then she's gonna be a doctor, and she's gonna like, you know, that kind of thing. And then the boy wants to go to Juilliard for music, like he's super into music, and he knows that like if he doesn't get into Juilliard, like he can't really pursue that, because he lives in like a kind of shady part of town, like he's not part of a gang, but like, okay, the thing is, he is gay, and his boyfriend is in a gang, or like his ex-boyfriend's in a gang or something, and so he's like sort of in danger and like is trying to escape, that kind of thing. So he's trying to go to Juilliard, and then basically the whole book happens, and these two students start getting like publicly blackmailed, sort of like secrets start coming out about them, and it's like some of them are fake, some of them aren't, but it's like weird, and they're trying to like bring this to people's attention and be like, someone needs to help. Now that it comes to my mind, I think the girl is gay too. I think I can't remember, I think she gets a girlfriend. I can't remember, but essentially by the end of the book, it turns out there's literally the entire school is plotting against these two students, and every, like, I don't know if it's like every 4 years, so there's only 2 black students there at a time, like, it's wild, but, literally everyone is plotting against these students and is gonna kill them, I think, and it's like, literally, it gets so crazy and culty, like, in the end, and I did not see that coming at all. Like, I hope no one DNFs this book, because, like, the end of it is truly goes so far into the deep end that, like, I could not have predicted any of that if you told me in the beginning. Like, truly, it was wild. But yeah, really loved it. It was very, like, thriller kind of thing. So, I loved it. Next, I have Family of Liars, which this is the sequel to We Were Liars, which I have the book somewhere. They're over there, it's fine. But I read We Were Liars in 2020 when it was like all over TikTok, and people were sort of back and forth about it. Some people were like, this is the best book ever, like, you gotta read it. And then once it got all that hype, a lot of people read it and were disappointed. I personally was so gagged by that book. Like, I loved it. I thought the plot twist at the end, literally, I have photos that I swear I've shown in like 10 YouTube videos of me sobbing, like sobbing my chest out at that book. So, needless to say, love We Were Liars. And then I saw that this book was like, the sequel was floating around, and that it was like, I saw it in Walmart a few times, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get this. Because I was like, I need to really know if, like, I was just crazy for liking We Were Liars, or if I really do love this series. And so Family of Liars is essentially a prequel, and it talks about the mother from We Were Liars and her childhood with her sisters. And not to spoil anything, if I talk too much about this book, I'll have to spoil We Were Liars, and I don't really want to do that. So let's just say there is some spirit activity, and I really like that. Like, I like that it's not subtly like, I can feel you. It's like there's literally a ghost. I eat that up. And I think this book goes in a direction towards the end, which I won't spoil, but I love a thriller. I love a thriller. And it starts off as, like, I read this on the beach, literally. So it starts off as more of like a beach read, coming of age, then turns into thriller. And that's all I'll say, but I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Because it was good. And I read it in like 2 days. Legit. So yeah, I loved it. One of Us Is Next, I also read at the beach. I gave this a 4.25 out of 5 stars. By the way, my ratings are like, there's really no criteria. I just go with what my heart says. So like, the difference between a 4 and a 4.25 star book is basically just like, if I read them close together and I like one slightly more than the last one, then I'll rate it slightly higher. So that's why I did that. But One of Us Is Next, this is literally the exact same thing that happened with Good Girls Guide to Murder. In fact, both of these series are like young adult and about murders, to put it lightly. And for Good Girls Guide to Murder, I read the first book and then waited a year because I didn't see how the sequel could like add anything to the series, because I thought the first book was so good. Then read the sequel and read the third book and was like, literally favorite series ever. And the same thing happened with One of Us Is Next, because the first book, One of Us Is Lying, I read like even before 2020, like before I was really into reading like that, and I was obsessed with that book, like genuinely obsessed. It lives rent free in my mind still to this day, but especially back in like 2019. And then I read One of Us Is Next, which is the sequel, because I had it, like I got it for Christmas or something, and then never read it, and so finally read it, loved it. I was nervous because there's like new characters. It's in the same like town, and it's very connected to the first book, but it is entirely new like narrators. But it's still fire, so recommend it for sure. Next, I read Romeo and Juliet. So I could go on a rant about how Shakespeare is taught in high school, but my main thing is that if you give a high school class Romeo and Juliet and you say, okay guys, act it out, and give everyone a part and make them stand up in front of the class and do it without knowing any of the context of the play, it's not going to be good, and then people aren't going to like it. Like, duh. So, I personally believe everyone needs to be reading the text along with a video of a play version of it, which, lucky for all of us, there was literally like a professionally filmed pro shot of Romeo and Juliet on Broadway with Orlando Bloom and someone else, and it's literally on YouTube, and it may not be the best, but it's like fine. Like, I thought it was good. So we need to be watching that. So yeah, I've read this along with watching that, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5. And like, y'all know what Romeo and Juliet's about. I don't need to talk about it. But yeah, 8. Then I read One of Us is Back, which is the 3rd book in the One of Us is Lying series. Again, loved that. I gave it a 4 out of 5 because I don't know. I think it was maybe a little bit like slower paced, but it does have like, let's just say one of the main characters goes missing. And so that's kind of like tea. And so like I thought that was really interesting. It had parts that were a lot more interesting than the last books, but overall I think it was like a little bit slower paced or something. I don't really remember. Next I read Pygmalion. This is a play. It's a play, right? Yeah. I read this for school. AP Literature and Composition. And I gave it 2.5 out of 5 because I don't know. I don't even remember what the main character's name is. Oh, I do remember. Eliza. Oh my god. The thing is, with these freaking like 20th, 19th century plays, because I'm currently reading A Doll's House, or actually I just finished A Doll's House. It's not that like it's not that the plot is bad or the writing is bad or that it's like the message is bad, because they have like great feminist messages, but the men are literally like I'm gonna tweak out if I read another word from this man. Like, I cannot. It's just so disgusting to read. So it's like, I don't want to read it. Why does my hair look like that? Put it back. So yeah, I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. But yeah, I loved Eliza. I just hate the man. Ugh. Next, y'all were waiting for this one. Y'all were like, where's the Rick Riordan on this list? Next I read Rather the Triple Goddess. So I gave this a 3.75 out of 5. Hold your criticism. I made a whole video about this book, so like I don't need to go into that much detail, but basically after thinking it over and listening to the Seaweed Brain podcast, I am liking it more. Like, I don't know. It just wasn't my favorite. I think a big issue I have with it is that I just don't like animal sidekicks. I really don't. Like, I just don't. This whole book is about them babysitting essentially, and so a lot of the humor and plot comes from like them chasing these animals across New York City, and like the animals doing funny stuff, and like I just like I hate that. Like I just don't like animal sidekicks. Hot take for my Percy Jackson fans: I don't really like Blackjack. I really don't like Blackjack. I don't really like Mrs. O'Leary. Like there was so much. Even like Mrs. O'Leary, I don't think she was in this book, but she was mentioned a few times, and I'm just like, I actually don't care. I just like, I don't know. I'm not an animal person. So I think that was a big reason I didn't like this book as much, but also I just thought that, like, to me, the main message wasn't super clear. Like, I guess the message was something about, like, choosing your family or whatever. Me judging this so hard. But I just, like, wasn't really getting that because, again, I don't even like the animals. And also, there was a scene in here with Grover that literally, like, the exact same thing happened in the Chalice of the Gods, of him being like, I don't want you and Annabeth to leave, and then Percy, like, calming him down, and then it happens again in Wrath of the Triple Goddess. And I'm like, we literally just solved this. I don't know. But I'm being harsh. Like, obviously I loved the book. Obviously I'll wait for 20 more of them. I'll read a million of that book. So yeah. That's Wrath. And then next is The Kite Runner, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5, and this is like my second highest rated of the year, I believe. I also read this for AP Lit, but I loved it. Let's start with that. Loved it. I thought, like, it was, first of all, deeply entertaining. Second of all, the way it progressed through the 3 parts, it was like, it's such, like, I would consider this a modern classic, for sure. Like, the way, basically, okay, let me explain the book a bit. It's about this boy named Amir who lives in Afghanistan with his dad and his best friend Hassan, and then Hassan's dad Ali. Is that his name? Yeah. And Amir and his dad are like kind of rich, and then Hassan and Ali are Ali and Baba, Amir's dad, were like have been best friends forever, and so they are there's Pashtun, and then there's the other one, Hazara, I think. They're considered like inferior because they're like a different type of Afghanistan. I don't know. Y'all know what I'm saying. And so they're sort of like racially discriminated against, but they are Baba and Amir's servants, kind of, but like they sort of do that as like they're not treated as less than with Baba and Amir. Because they love each other. And so then Amir and Hassan become best friends. They grow up like brothers. In fact, not to spoil, but there's a reason that they grew up as brothers. Maybe they are. But yeah. Basically the first part of the book is their childhood in Afghanistan. Just like, it's lovely, it's light, it's happy. And then this really horrible thing happens to Hassan, which I'm not gonna get into. You just gotta read it. But warning, I think it happens in like chapter 7 or something. This won't stop falling. Girl, just stay there. But this really horrible thing happens to Hassan, and Amir doesn't stop it. To be fair, there was not a lot of room for him to stop it, but like, he could have done something and he didn't. And so basically, for the majority of the rest of the book, it's just him living with the guilt of that happening, and him and Baba leave Afghanistan because the Soviets start to take over. It gets to be a really dangerous place, and so they leave. And so part 2 is pretty much Amir's life in America and like trying to fit in and like how he's progressing and stuff. And then part 3, he returns to Afghanistan because this man who he really respects back there reached out to him and was like, you need to come back here and help me with something. It's for Hassan. And then he goes back to Afghanistan and spoiler alert, finds out that Hassan and his wife were killed by the Taliban, and that Hassan has a son out there that is like in an orphanage and needs help. And he goes, and basically it's a long process, but he gets the son, finds out the son has been put into a really, really, really bad situation, quite similar to the one that Hassan was put into early in his life, and he finally sees this as like the chance to get over his guilt and like make up for it. And so he adopts Hassan's son, brings him back to America, and then it's just a really beautiful story. And then it ends with like, for a year, what's his son's name, bruh? Soraya is his wife. I don't know what the son's name is. I feel like it starts with an H, I don't know. But whatever. For a year, he basically like won't speak to them, won't do anything. He's very like quiet because of how much trauma he's been through. But then the book ends with him, you know, like kind of connecting a little bit, like showing the beginnings of something happening. So yeah, it's really sweet. Then I read, that was literally the entire plot, bro. Next, I read The Outsiders, which I gave 5 stars. This is a lot due to the musical. I love The Outsiders musical, and so I love The Outsiders book. And I just thought, like, I think it's so impressive that she wrote it when she was 16. Like, that's crazy. And it's written in such an easy way to read, but like entertaining and also beautiful. Like, it shows you don't need big vocabulary or like huge like fancy stuff going on to just have a meaningful story. And my very favorite part is when they say the boys with the boys with black eyes who look at sunsets and wish for something better or something like that. Like, it's so beautiful. It says a lot about like gang culture and like how they're just innocent people too. They just want to see the sunset too. And yeah, it's just so crazy she wrote that was when she was 16. But yeah, so good. Then that is my highest rated of that might be my only 5-star of this year. Spook. Yeah. Then I read I, Claudius, which I gave a 2.5 out of 5. This is giving very like literary fiction, like, and I didn't really need that. I looked at the cover and I was like, Claudius, that's cool. I got it for $1, first of all, and so I went to the counter and gave it to the bookseller man, and he goes, oh, this is a good one. Literally in the cover he wrote must read. Like, when it was sitting on the shelf, if someone would look in, it was like must read. I was like, okay, gotta get it. So like, and like, it's very well renowned, so I'm not trying to dissuade you from reading it. It's just like, it's not the Song of Achilles. Like, it's very much like you're getting textbook kinda. Yeah, but also I thought basically it's about Claudius, the Roman emperor, and so I was like enjoying a lot of it. Like, I was enjoying the Livia stuff. I was enjoying the like hierarchy, like line of succession stuff, but then there was also a lot of stuff thrown in there about like war, and then a bunch of people getting exiled and stuff, and I didn't really care as much about that. But I thought that the main part of this book was gonna be like Claudius getting power and then like being emperor. But like the book starts before he was even born, and it goes through years. Like it has years on the side in the margins, and like goes through the whole history of like how he came to be and like all that. And then the book ends right when he becomes emperor, which is not what I was expecting. And so I was sort of like, I really like how it ended. Like now that I know that the part I was like most looking forward to isn't even part of the book, but like the way it ended is kind of deep. Like it ends with like, "You're emperor now," and he was like, "I don't want that." So yeah, kind of good, but didn't love. Obviously, gave it 2.5 out of 5. Next is Paradise Lost by John Milton. I gave this 3.5 out of 5. Simply because like I thought it was good. Like it was beautifully written, truly, like the symbolism and stuff. Honestly, if I was rating this today, I'd probably give it like a 4 or 4.25. But I don't know, I just gave it a 3.5 on that day because it's difficult to read for sure. If something's difficult to read, I rate it lower. That's just how I am. So yeah, there's that. But it's about wait, what am I talking about? Oh my god, I was totally thinking about Dante's Inferno. I didn't even rate Dante's Inferno. Wait. Okay, Paradise Lost. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I feel like I liked Paradise Lost more than Dante's Inferno. Like, I'd probably give Paradise Lost maybe even like 4.5. It's basically about Satan after he falls from heaven, but also, like, I'm not a biblical girl, so I was sort of like, whatever. Because I wanted a book that was supporting him. I wanted it to be like kind of tea what he did, but obviously like John Milton was trying to write about God. So, whatever. Moving on. 1984, gave it 3 out of 5. I think without like knowing the context, like the book itself, reading it, my enjoyment and like takeaway is 3 out of 5. But like when you consider how ahead of his time he was when writing this, like predicting technology listening to us and stuff, and like risking getting like caught by the British, whatever, you can respect it a little more. But it was just, I freaking hate Winston, who's the main character, and I love Julia, who is the love interest, who is literally villainized. So that's it. I wrote literally, okay, I read 1984 for my AP Lit class too, and literally one of my essays I wrote was about why Julia is written literally to be villainized so bad. Then the next 3 and last 3 books of the year that I read were the first 3 books in the Raven cycle, and then the last book I'm getting to soon once I finish Song of Achilles. But yeah, I gave the Raven Boys 4. Oh wait, okay, I gave them all 4 out of 5. Yeah, I just love these books. I do see like the common criticism is that they're kind of, the first 3/4 of the books are very like character based and like building up suspense, and then the last quarter of the book is where all the action happens. So it is sort of it can get boring if you're not as into the characters, but like I love the characters. So yeah. And then also in books 2 and 3 and 4 as well, I assume, they introduce a lot more adult characters, which I don't personally care about as much. Like, when it gets to, like, the, like, if you haven't read the books, you're gonna have no clue what I'm talking about, but, like, Green Mantle and Piper, Blue Lily, Lily Blue, are, like, I literally don't care. And then the things with Mara and the Gray Man, also don't care. So yeah, that would be my main complaint, but I love these books. So, you gotta read them. But yeah, that was the 18 books I read this year. Hoping to do better next year. Bye!